What's up, everybody? My name's Matt. I tie a couple flies down here at the Saltwater Edge. Today we're going to go over one of my favorites that I always have in my box. It's Dave Skok's Mush Mouth Fly. For tools, it's pretty basic. You're going to need your bodkin with some mono thread. You're going to need some curved scissors. I like to use these at the end for trimming. Kind of does the work for you. Makes it a lot easier. You're going to need just some regular fly tying scissors. I like to use a brush to kind of brush out the SF fiber if it gets a little wild on you. And then you're also going to need some solar res. I like to use thick, your torch. We're going to use a little bit of liquid fusion. This stuff helps to stop fouling of the fly. And for materials, we're going to be using SF fiber. For today's fly, we're just going to do some white and olive. You're going to need some Supreme hair. I like to just use white. We're going to use some Flashabou. This is just regular silver Flashabou. We're going to need some 8mm stick-on eyes. And for the hook, we're going to be using the SL12S in size 4/0. I really like this fly. It's durable, easy to tie, easy to cast, sheds water easily. It's a nice profile. It's just one of my favorite flies to tie. So yeah, we'll get started. All right, so we got our hook in the vise. We're going to start our mono thread right at the eye. We're going to work it back to right about just behind the hook point there. Give a nice little base. Then bring it forward. Cut off our thread. We're going to get our Supreme hair. We're going to take your Supreme hair, and Supreme hair we're going to have a little bit shorter than the actual length of the fly. We're going for about a 6 to 8 inch fly here. Depending on what bait profile you're going for, you can change up the length. We're going to tie that in right before the curve of the back of the hook. We're just going to cut off our excess. Then we can take our Flashabou. We're going to grab about 25, 30 strands. I just eyeball it. And we'll take that, cut that off. This is going to be the longest part of your fly. And we can trim it at the end. It's a little bit easier than having to measure. I like to tie it in right on top of the Supreme hair, leaving a little bit extra in front of the hook. Lay that right on top. Kind of reorient it if need be. And then I like to double over the Flashabou just so it doesn't flip out. Then I'll just leave the excess on because you're not going to be able to see it. Then I'm going to bring it back to that last tie and go under the hooks, under the material. We're going to do about 3 wraps. That just gives it a little bump. Helps it from not fouling. Then we'll bring our thread to about the middle of the hook shank. Leave it right there. We're going to grab our liquid fusion. We're going to take it and we're going to soak the Supreme hair and the Flashabou about 2.5, 3 inches towards the back. You can be pretty liberal with this stuff. This is your first step for preventing fouling. It's a nice part about this fly is it is pretty foul proof at the end of it. Get that on there. Sort of like that. Then we can move on to our SF fiber. I like to do the top color. We're going to be using green. And when you take this stuff out of the package, sometimes it can be a little wild. So I just like to take it and brush it out. Get all those crazy hairs out of there. And then what I like to do, instead of trimming it at the end, you can kind of taper it in your hands. I like to hold it in the left hand and kind of pinch and pull those longer hairs. And it'll give you a really nice, realistic taper. Then what we'll do is take it, flip it, and we'll get our length here. So we want the Flashabou to be longer than our SF fiber. So we'll go right about here. Stuff can be a little tricky sometimes. right about there. We're just going to tie that in with about 3 or 4 tight securing wraps, making sure that our olive stays on top. Tie that in. Before I flip the hook over in the vise, I just like to take my white, brush it out, get those crazy hairs out of there. Same thing, taper it. Helps get a more realistic profile, and it's a little bit easier than trimming it at the end with your scissors. And it's just less work, which is always important. What I like to do is just get the measurement from the top rather than having to try to do it with the fly hooked over. Just go right about there. Flip your fly. This is where your rotating vise starts to pay for itself. And then we'll just do the same thing. 3 or 4 tight securing wraps, making sure that the white doesn't flip over from your thread pressure. And then we're just going to eyeball the bottom to get these white hairs equally around the hook. You don't have to go too crazy. And just pull it all back, check your profile. I'm digging it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work our thread up the hook shank to right behind the eye, making sure, once again, that our colors are staying where our colors are supposed to be. Then I'll just work it back, securing it all where it needs to be, checking the other side. And I'm liking the way that looks. You want to get it tight on that hook eye. And we're going to leave it just like that for a second. Pull all this hair back. Then we're going to come back with our liquid fusion for our second stage of anti-fouling. And we're going to take our liquid fusion, we're going to come back over the supreme hair, I would say about maybe an inch and a half, and just cover all this material in your supreme hair, or sorry, with your liquid fusion. Just work that in. Like that. Okay, for our next step, we're going to separate our top and bottom colors. Sort of like this. And you can take your push tool, or you can just use your hands. We're just going to take this, push it back, and take this, push it back. Trying to equally spread that white SF fiber on the bottom, on the hook shank. Then what we're going to do is just pull our mono up and over. And we're just going to do a loose bullet tie for now when we get this hair figured out. Push it all back. Like it. That liquid fusion is going to pull on your SF fiber, giving you a nice profile, also making it super durable, and really helps with the fouling, so that when you do come upon that huge blitzing ball of fish, you don't have to worry about it fouling. Then I like to just work my mono up, securing all that SF fiber so it does not come unraveled. Then I'll just work the thread right behind the hook eye, check my profile, and then we're just going to do, I like to do two to 3 turn whip finishes. The head's going to be covered in UV resin, so you really don't have to worry about it, the thread breaking. Okay, so that's it for the tying portion. Now we're going to work on the head and the eyes. So what I like to do is just take these stick-on eyes. I like to keep things kind of basic. Just turn it. Just stick those eyes right on that tie-in point. I don't really like to use super glue because we're going to cover this whole thing in UV resin. These things are kind of tricky to get off. All right. Put your other eye on. Try to make it as symmetrical as possible. Just like that. All right. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your UV resin and we're going to fill in all the gaps. This could look like the simplest part of the fly, but this is where you really got to take your time and get your resin where you want it. I like to do resin in multiple stages rather than one big one. I think it just makes a better looking fly and there's less bubbles and blowouts. Let's get to that. Torch that. We'll flip the fly over and do the same thing. Just getting low here. Good thing we're at a fly shop. We'll fill that up. You want to work that UV resin just on the SF fiber just a little bit. That's just going to make it more durable. All right. Keeping it away from the hook eye as best you can. It's a little tricky. Torch that. Listen. Then I'm just going to take it, cover all the eyes, get a little bit on that SF fiber. Cover the eyes, just encasing the eyes in your UV resin. This makes a super strong head, whether you're getting attacked by bluefish, it's bouncing off rocks on a jetty, or if you have a bad back cast and it bounces off your motor cover, your outboard cover, should survive. Edit it. We'll just kick that all off.
Two bar.
Just like that. Now, technically, you can fish this fly. It does have a little bit of extra material, so I always like to trim it just to clean up the profile. So the way that I like to do it is take the hook out of the vise, put it in vertically, and then get your brush, and then come in, brush it all out. So you kind of get this triangle shape. And this is where our vertical scissors come in. So I like to take it out, pinch where we put all that liquid fusion, and then just come in. You kind of want to be slow and methodical with your trimmings because you can't put the hair back on once you trimmed it. Come in at the bottom. Just kind of trim that up a little bit. Get a nice profile. Yes. Then I'll take it, just mess around with it. If you like the way it looks, leave it, fish it. If you don't, you can trim it. You can spend a lot of time trimming these. I think I'm good with that. Just come in and get some of these hairs cleaned up a little bit.
Bam.
Liking that. So we'll just come in. I like to pinch our Flashabou. You want it to be longer than your SF fibers, but not too long. So I'm just going to cut that maybe a ½ an inch longer than our SF fiber. That's it right there. That's David Skok's Mushmouth. This is one of my favorite flies to throw. I think it's super durable. It's easy to cast, easy to tie. It's really a genius fly. It doesn't take too much material. Thank you guys for watching. That was David Skok's Mushmouth. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you like the video, like it. Let us know what you guys want to see us tie next. And thanks for watching. Appreciate it. See you later.
Hi.